Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 2 of the Big Black Bear podcast. I'm joined for this episode, and this is where I'm going to feel really dumb because I've got an expert with me. Please welcome psychotherapist Charlotte White. Hello, Charlotte. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, great to see you.
It's, first of all, because I'm sure we'll talk about loads of different things, but what exactly does a psychotherapist do?
Oh gosh, wow, we've started off with a biggie there.
Yeah.
Um,
If you could really dumb it down for me, just what is it? What do you do? What kind of things do you do?
you know what? I would just say it could be many things to many people, but I guess the hope is that it's a space to get some support to feel better. That's really the aim. And sometimes you feel worse and then better. So it's not always an upward trajectory to feel better. That's an important thing to mention if anyone's listening who's thinking about trying it.
Right.
Um, I think also to just live fully as a human being with everything that involves, and that can require some help from someone, can't it, at times? Because life is not an easy thing.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's not. And I was saying to you before we pressed record that I'm sort of I'm in the middle of the dip of the big black bear coming up and putting his big nasty paws on my shoulders. And I know, from previous experience, I know that it bottoms out at a certain point, and you know that's it. I've hit the bottom now, and so it's going to start getting better. And yesterday, I've had issues with my kidney. It feels like I'm at the doctors now. I'm telling you everything. But I've had issues with my kidney, my right kidney, for a few years, and that flared up yesterday. And as much as it was painful, and I had a day where I just didn't do anything, I kind of thought to myself, is this it? Is this where it's bottomed out? Is it only going to get better from now? Is in your experience, is that how people tend to look at it, or sometimes is that dark tunnel just continuously going?
Well, it's really difficult to answer that in some ways because it's different for different people. And for some people, their depression might be a prolonged low period of kind of hopelessness and just thinking, what's the point? When's it going to get better? Do I believe it's going to get better?
Mm.
You know, all the other things that go along with that, feeling unmotivated. But hopelessness, really, I think that's the one that kind of sticks out to me. And for other people, it can be different things, can't it? Their lowness might be a period of bad sleep, or, you know, an afternoon where it sort of descends and you think, gosh, you kind of get quite philosophical and think, what am I doing? Am I really happy? Is this the life I want to live?
Mm-hmm.
And those questions kind of filter in. So I think it, like most of my answers are probably going to be today, it's going to be like, it's different for different people. And now I can't even remember what you asked me.
Well, the thing I was going to say is, in your job, is your job to try and work out whether this is just a temporary little thing or it is one of those long paths that you just spoke about?
Wow, another great question. I mean, it depends what people are coming for, isn't it? Some people want to look back on their history and go, why is it like this for me? Why do I have it? And often people will say, I don't know why. I had a great childhood. I had a great growing up. There's no big things in my past. And yet I still hit these lows.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's true, there isn't any one particular thing that has happened that's led to feeling this way. And you know, sometimes there is, and stuff comes up and you think, oh, actually I did have a difficult relationship with that person, or I thought I wasn't really bothered by what went on when I was at university, but actually it has really bothered me and it still sticks with me, and actually there's stuff going on in my life that reminds me now of that time, that's kind of re-triggering it. So I kind of don't want to go down too far down the road of trauma, because I think trauma might be a kind of a chapter in and of itself. So some people want answers, some people want some strategies to just be like, I just want to feel okay so I can focus on the things that are important to me. So that's the thing, isn't it? Some people might want to come for years and talk about the past. Some people don't want to do that. They want to think about now. They want to think about their relationship now, which of course will have some links to the past.
Yeah.
Most people come, I was thinking, actually, do people come in the dip? That's kind of got me thinking now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm only going from my personal sort of point of view. I mean, I've never got to the point where I think I'm going to harm myself. But there always seems to be a moment where I feel like I've hit the bottom of where I am at that particular moment in that particular depression. It feels like it's always an arc. For this particular one that I'm in now, it was weird because I walk before I go to work every day, and I was walking past the canal where I walk, and it was just something just hit me, and I just started crying there was no reason, there was no link or trigger, there was nothing, and then I thought to myself, oh, here we go again. It had been a long time when I felt like that before. And then from that moment, but then there was even 2 or 3 days after that, there were moments where I'm thinking to myself, am I putting this on? This is weird. I feel like I'm doing this for the sake of doing this rather than actually feeling depressed. And then I thought to myself, or is that the depression making me feel like that? So it started to mess my brain up a bit even more, because I was thinking to myself, right, am I just looking for attention here? Is what and then you start looking, you start trying to work out why you're feeling like this. And I don't think I've got the mental capacity or the brain power to work that out, because it's funny you just said that some people will have like a wonderful childhood and no trauma in there, and I was like that. I had a wonderful childhood. My mum and dad loved me. I was very lucky that I grew up and never had the kind of trauma that I've spoken to people about. You know, I've never had that. So trying to work out where that particular crux comes from in how I feel, I don't know. That's probably, a 10-week session that I might have to do with you.
Do you know what? There's so many answers to that, but there's two that I was thinking about when I was thinking about talking to you. And one of them was how, and now this is something that people might really hate, so I'm going to put that out there, that there might be a negative reaction to this. We're not very good at tuning into our feelings. That's a big thing for people when they come into therapy. So whenever we say something came out of the blue, I'm like, it's really rare that stuff actually does come out of the blue, because we're not very good noticers. And I mean, on a micro level, everything, we're such sensitive creatures on this earth, and things really stay with us, and tiny things have an impact. So say, for example, someone has a name that is the same as a name of somebody that something happened with for me years ago. I don't not necessarily check that that's had an impact on me, because I've got a busy life. I don't sit there and go, oh, I remember that happened that time. That was weird, wasn't it? That will have an impact on me. Like everything that happens when I get on the bus, the way the driver talks to me, the driver looks like someone I used to know. I don't really clock it. It's not really that important to me in that moment. Or, I didn't sleep very well, or someone said something to me and it bothered me. All of it is filtering in and filtering in and filtering in. And if I don't stop and go, oh, that really happened, or like check in with myself all the time about stuff that's going on and the way that it makes me feel, it will kind of accumulate, because we all want to be listened to somewhere inside of us. And if I don't listen and check in and go, what's it like for me? How do I feel? Is that impacting me? I'm curious and interested in myself. If I'm not, it reaches a peak where it's like, now you're depressed because you just too full up of stuff. And there's not enough listening to what's really happening and sorting through that. That's why we sleep at night. It's for our brains to filter all of the massive moments of our day into the right order. And that's why insomnia has such a huge impact, because we're carrying all of the stuff that goes on. So I'm curious to know how that's landed with you and how you're feeling about me saying that in the first instance.
It makes a lot of sense, because the one thing that I've found, and I don't know whether it's I'm a narcissist or anything like that, but I always have that feeling that even if I'm on the top of my game and I'm really happy, if I see two people in the street talking to each other, I automatically think to myself, what are they saying about me? Why are they talking about me? Or even if I'm at work and I see two people over the other side of the warehouse, and they're just talking obviously about something that's nothing to do with me, the first thing I would think of is why are they talking about me? What have I done wrong? Or I'll check my face that there isn't like a bogey on my nose, or do you know what I mean? It's just something in my head that, and I know, but I don't know. See, when I say that out loud, that to me sounds like, yeah, you just think that everybody is worried about you, and they're not. You know, they've all got their own worries, and they've all got their own things that they need to sort out in their life, that the last thing they're going to worry about is somebody that they work with. Now, I will say that I'm very, very lucky, and I've got a couple of people that I work with, and we all kind of look out for each other because we've all had mental health issues, and we can all tell when someone isn't quite right, and we'll just make sure that they know that we're there, and if you know, and it's a beautiful thing. But I do sometimes try and think and go back to where it would come from, where these feelings. I'm a terrible person for just crying for no particular reason, even when I'm happy. There might be something, I'll be talking about a song, not necessarily hearing a song, and I can feel myself getting emotional about it, and I'm thinking, oh God, it's so, I don't know if it's a sign of weakness, I don't, but it does tend to be something that pisses me off a little bit, in the fact I can't talk to somebody about the most inane things without a layer of me getting emotional about it. That can't be healthy.
Oh, I don't know. I'm thinking your emotions feel quite at the surface for you then. Is that what you mean?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, I can get emotional about a lot of things, and it's not, I don't think it's genuine emotion, whether it's happy or sad. And again, some of them could be linked to my childhood. I mean, as you can see by my background, I'm a massive Star Wars fan. So if I start looking at anything that will then take me back to when I was 8 years old, when Star Wars came out, that feeling that I get, just to hear the first "duh" of the Star Wars theme, it transports me back to when I was 8, 9 years old. That's the kind of thing that I think I'm obviously holding on to something from my childhood from that, but I can't think of anything bad. I mean, it's only ever good stuff.
Yeah, and also I think don't put expectations on yourself to find. You know, we all want the big headlines all the time, don't we?
Yeah,
That's what we want. Everyone in therapy wants the big headline, and really, what we should be looking for is the tiny, 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 all the time. You know, that's really the message I'm trying to kind of send to you. Because, I mean, firstly, it's not wrong to be feeling a lot. So that's a message that maybe it would be worth kind of thinking about. You know, for me, I'm thinking, wow, your feelings are like really around. You know, as a therapist, is something really, there's a lot to kind of work with around that, isn't there? To really share that with someone and really kind of be with your feelings and be really open with your feelings and know them and kind of think, this is how I really feel authentically. That's a big part of therapy. It's the opportunity to really be authentic with another person who will be there with you together, you know, not lonely and alone, but an opportunity to do that. So I think that's a lovely thing in therapy when that happens. But obviously we all have our own kind of big things I don't like about myself, are big topics, you know. And what I hear there is, I'm a really sensitive person and I really don't like that about myself. And I'm like, right, okay, those are two voices then to kind of get to grips with, isn't it? And try to build some kind of relationship with. So do you think there's judgment there for you? Are you a judger?
Well, no, I mean, I think I'm always somebody that feels that they're being judged all the time. You know, taking point the two people that are talking about something else, and I'm thinking they're talking about me, or there'll be times when me and my wife are talking about things, and I'll get upset because it feels like she's being like she's accusing me of something, and she'll go, "No, I'm just talking to you." And then when I play back what we've been talking about, I think, yeah, I've been oversensitive, and I think that's the trouble. It's nice to have feelings and to show the feelings, but I think for me personally, I think I'm on the spectrum of it all. I'm too far emotional, where I'd like to rein it back a little bit. And I think things like, you know, having kids and having grandkids and worrying about them every day, hoping that they're okay, and hoping that it's one reason why I used to not be able to sleep very well. That was just one thing I couldn't do, because every time I closed my eyes, I pictured my grandkids like walking along the edge of a cliff, and they're gonna fall, or something bad is gonna happen. So I ended up having to get some headphones, like, and listen to things while I'm going to sleep, so it distracts the brain. I suppose that might be what it is. So it's all those kind of things. It's worrying about everything and not being able to switch that tap off sometimes. And again, to me, saying that out loud, it sounds that's a very unhealthy thing. As much as it's nice being caring to people, especially the people that you love, I don't know whether that's going a little bit too far the other way.
Well, do you know what? There's so many, and I know this isn't a therapy session.
No. You're going to charge me for this after this.
My therapist brain is like firing off in all directions.
I can imagine.
I've been trained to do. But, I want to pick up on a few things from that I think other people are going to really chime with in what you've said. One of them is the thing about worrying about what other people are thinking about you. For me, there's a couple of really interesting things about that I want to share. One is that a thing about having a strong critic. Okay, so there's a thing called IFS, internal family systems, that really talks about how there's different parts of us that come in at different moments. And quite often one of those parts might be a strong critical voice. So we kind of live with that critic. And some people, we live with them all the time. We don't even really think that they're there. We just think, those are just my thoughts. That's how I think. That's me. I'm hard on myself. I have high expectations of myself. I care about people's feelings. I don't want to upset people. I don't want to get things wrong. I don't want to get into trouble sometimes. And I lived with a very strong kind of critical voice, for a lot of my life. And then I sort of realized that if the two of us were going to be living together, I'd rather we lived together and got along all right. So I thought, okay, well, I have this strong critical voice. That's a part of me. That's normal. Everybody has that. If I just step back and and just look at that as if it isn't me, I'm not that person. I have the capacity to be that person, and that person will arrive at certain moments in my life and kind of take over. But it's not wrong to have it, basically, is what I'm saying. So if I allow it to just be my continuous train of thought, unaware, this is where awareness is such a big thing in therapy, isn't it? Because I didn't even think about it until I was like, oh, there's this person who chats in the background all day long giving me a really hard time. Maybe I just don't really want that radio on all the time.
Yeah.
So say, for example, I've had an argument with someone and I'm upset. So this chitter, like, why did you say that? Why didn't you do that? And being a therapist 1,000 times worse. You're a therapist. Why didn't you be nice or whatever it is, empathetic and understanding? And then I go, all right, okay, that voice has sort of had the platform of my thinking for like 2 hours. I've heard it. I know what it's got to say. I've listened. I understand it's just there to try and get me to do the right thing. It's probably linked to my values in some way. I can kind of let that go now. We don't have to kind of live with the radio on. I can have another thought. That's okay. So there's something about building the separation between thoughts are not you. That's a really important one. We all have different voices. That's okay. I'm going to live with that voice. It's never going to go away. I don't want it to go away. Sometimes it's important to have it, and that's okay. But I get to be the one in charge of how much airtime all of those things have. So say your lovely example about people in the cafe talking about me. It's like, I've just had a thought those people are talking about me. That's my critic coming up and being a bit kind of concerned about what I may or may not have on my face. That's okay. Serving a function of making sure that I'm, some kind of self-consciousness is all right. But I've had that thought now. I don't need to kind of continue on the road of worrying about it all afternoon, and then there's a little bit of space. And then in that space, you might develop the skills to put a few other nicer things in there, hopefully, like self-compassion, one that people are generally not very good at, particularly if you have a strong critic, and go, hey, I'm standing back from that thought now. It's really hard for me when I get in a position where I think people are talking about me. That's really stressful and difficult. And if someone came to me and said that, I would be like, that is horrible for you. You just want to be sat having a coffee and a nice time. And now you're stressed, your blood pressure's going up, your heart rate's going up. What a crap thing to be happening, right?
Yeah.
So in the little gap, there's a few therapeutic things you try and kind of build in. And that's my answer to that.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say how healthy, as much as I keep saying like the things that I'm thinking about are not particularly healthy, being too emotional, worrying about everything too much. I was talking to a comedian on our first episode, Keris Nelms, and we were both saying about the fact, because I do a bit of singing as well. I do a bit of singing in pubs and clubs. And especially, when was it? Last Saturday, was the first one I had to do, and it's the closest I've had sitting in the living room with my wife before I went to having a panic attack. I'd never had a panic attack before, but I really didn't want to go because I wasn't feeling it. But I knew once I started singing, and I call it the happy mask. The happy mask comes on, and you're not who you are. You're this character. You're, the singer or the podcaster, because you have to be, how you doing? You okay? Yeah, come on. You have to be super confident. How healthy is that to put that mask on? Because I knew when I came back from that particular bit of singing, the dip was going to be extra low, because it naturally is. Even if you're singing to just 20 people in a pub, if it's a really great night, you leave there feeling like you're, the greatest thing ever, because you had people shouting your name, telling you that they love you and you're great, and then you go home and you're sat on your own. And I will admit that's when my drug is food. So that is when I have my worst, because the dip starts happening, the adrenaline starts subsiding, and all of a sudden I'm just eating bowls of cereal or pieces of toast at like 1 o'clock in the morning. How healthy is it to keep putting that happy mask on?
I love that question, and I really thought about that because I listened to your first episode.
Oh, right, okay.
Which was really interesting and very open, and
it was more open than I thought it was going to be. Bless her, Keris. I've known Keris for years, and it was heartbreaking. Genuinely was.
Yeah, but how honest and how helpful to other people. So because there's other people out there who feel the same. That's the nice thing about podcasting, isn't it? It's
absolutely
real connection to like, yeah, I thought that. Absolutely. I don't work masses with performers, so you probably find a much more educated, helpful person to answer that. So I'll just go from my own experience with that caveat in mind. A lot of the therapy I trained in, because I'm person-centered, so I'm very into kind of Carl Rogers. Any therapist listening to this will kind of know what I'm talking about. But his big thing was, where does anxiety come from? It comes from incongruence. And in his thinking, it was, I have an authentic me in here, and I have a face I show the world.
Yeah.
And the more in sync my two bits are, the less anxious I'll be, the more congruent I'll be. He always talks a lot about congruence, that like living in sync with your real authentic self. So a lot of unhappiness in life comes about when we aren't doing that. We're doing things that don't fit with our values, that we're not doing the job that really inspires us. We're in a relationship where we can't really be totally honest with our partner. And of course, our anxiety just grows and grows and grows. So we're living out of sync with your inner person. That's not to say that we don't all have to just go in, like I was saying earlier about the parts. There might be a part that takes over, that's like the performer part, that will get you on stage and get you through what you've got to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it comes back to this non-judging attitude. If I judge that and go, that's wrong, I do that, and I put on a mask, I shouldn't put on a mask. I'm like, hey, hold back on the judgment. We all have to step into roles in our lives that maybe are a little bit out of sync with how we feel in that particular moment. But the closer we get to the living in sync, in whatever form that might look like in your life, at other moments in your day where you can just, this is really me, this is who I am. And the more, like, I know I'm going on and on about kind of love and acceptance, but that's only because I think it is genuinely important.
Yeah.
Love that. I love the person who got on stage and did their best. They did the best they could that day, right? I love the person who sat and ate 10 bowls of cereal. It was the best I could do that day. It was my strategy. I relied on my strategy. Maybe in therapy, I'll develop loads of other strategies that are more kind of healthy. Maybe I won't. That's okay. It's not about going. I think the temptation can be to feel like we're doing everything wrong all the time. And a lot of anxiety is about trying to stave off, if you think of anxiety from another point of view, we're trying to stave off the future problem, the future disappointment, the future, oh God, that kind of thing. And that's when the panic can really build.
Yeah.
Living in an imagined future that has gone wrong loads of the time. What if this happens? What if that happens? I'm not here now in the moment tuning into, oh, I'm sat doing a podcast sitting in my chair in my yellow room. I'm over there going, catastrophizing, and who wouldn't start to panic? If someone was saying that to me over and over, I'm not going to sit calmly in my chair and feel ready to do a great day's work. I'm going to be feeling really tense. You know, it's logic, isn't it, when we think about it like that?
Yeah.
How much of an answer is that for you?
I mean, it's great. I was thinking that it's weird because you say about these two people, you want them to be in sync. I would love to be that person. I would love to be the person that gets up and sings, you know, and as much as everybody that is outside of my family bubble, that's who they think I am. That they, you know, oh, that Pav, he's the guy that gets up and sings. He's a great laugh. And I would love to be that person. The one thing that is I find upsetting is that the people that I love the most, this is where I'll get emotional, these are the people that I love the most, that are the closest to me, are the ones that get the crappy end of the stick. You know, they're the ones that get the moody me. They're the ones that the public, if you like, whatever that means, they see the best of me. They see the person that I would love to be. But when I'm at home and, you know, and it is just normal everyday stuff, it's my wife or my kids will be the ones that will see the moody me and the not so fun and happy and jolly me, and that's kind of a bit that breaks my heart a little bit, is that I think you couldn't physically be that person all the time. It would just be too tiring and too just mentally and physically exhausting. But I think that's the thing, that it's a double-edged sword, because it's wonderful to be that person every so often. It's great. But I feel like I need to work more on being who I am normally. I mean, look, nobody's perfect. I've always said that. Nobody is perfect. So everybody has their foibles and stuff. But that's just one of the things that makes me just a little bit upset, in the fact that I can't be that person all the time.
Oh gosh, yeah, and I hear you. I really hear that, and I hear the wish to really be that for the people around you who you care about, because you want them to have a great experience with you, don't you? That's really loving. That comes from a very loving place in you, I hear. But I kind of think there's something of a flavour of, you know, there's sort of another thought that I kind of want to drop in terms of the getting better with our feelings theme, because I think we push ourselves to try to be something a lot. It's a lot of pressure to live under that, isn't there?
Mm.
And a lot of people do it, and they hold themselves to a massively high standard. You might not think that are holding yourself to a massively high standard in terms of what you've just said. You just want to be present and the person you want to be. But there's something about, if we get good with the bad stuff, you know, it's not really about, you know, anyone can enjoy the happy times. That's easy, isn't it? We're all good at that. But most of us aren't very good at coping with disappointment, sitting with shame, sitting with guilt, sitting with our feelings. And the more that and that's kind of, sometimes depression can be a bit of a blockage, because we're so resistant. I want to be this person. I want to be the friendly, fun parent. But really, if I'm not feeling like the friendly, fun parent, I'm creating that gap again, aren't I, between the real me and the person on the outside, more externally. But if I can go, I feel really guilty today about doing a really crap job of that, I really can't be bothered to play with my kid today. That's not very nice, is it?
No.
I'm all right with it. That's okay. That's real feeling in me. I feel really ashamed that we've sat and spent too much time looking at screens when we could have been doing something.
Yeah.
You know, that shame, that is okay. I feel ashamed of that. I feel guilty about that. If I roll with the feeling and don't deny it and feel all right about it, it will move on, and I'll move on to another bit, and another bit of the day might be really lovely and I'll get to enjoy it. But if I stay stuck in that, no, I'm not that person, I'm this other person, you know, that's where our mood can really because it drains our energy completely. We can't constantly be in a state of denial about what's really going on. And the more we get good with those sorts of things, the easier it is to do the other stuff. Is any of this making sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense. And I'm sure that there'll be people listening to this and they will be absolutely just nodding their head to everything that you're saying. It's obvious that you are good at what you do and you know what you're talking about. So what made you want to become a psychotherapist? What was your pathway to this?
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth about psychotherapists. They're all crazy.
Okay.
So when you go to your therapist and you're like, they're going to think I'm nuts if I tell them this. I promise you 100% they are the craziest people on earth. I don't care what anybody says. No one would come to this profession if they haven't had stuff go on in their lives that has been really tough, or they're not curious about other people. It's not about... Anyway, I'm going to put that out there. You'll probably get 1,000 complaints and you'll be like, I'm never having her on again. The therapist is up in arms. We are not all crazy. I don't care. That's from my experience, and I'm okay with that. And I hope you take that as a reassurance that when you sit in front of your therapist, please God, don't think that they're the perfect person, because 100% they are not. Anyway, so that's my little off my soapbox opportunity. What made me want to be a psychotherapist? Like I said to you in our kind of email exchanges before, I've had really, really tough times in my life, like seriously, seriously tough times. And I don't know how much detail to go into it on this podcast, because obviously I'm mindful that I have clients.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but I think that I hope that they would know that I would be honest enough, should any of them ask me that question, I would give them an honest answer too. I've had moments in my life where I thought, what is the point? That's it. And where did I go? Who did I talk to? How did I make sense of that? Where did I start? And I thought, so I kind of began, because I'd had the truth is that I'd had a really crap experience of going to a GP who basically said, pull yourself together.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I'm not sure that's really going to work.
No.
And then I thought, I wonder how many other people went to that GP and they said, pull yourself together. And they went home and seriously thought, I'm going to hurt myself.
Yeah.
I don't really like the thought of that. Thankfully, I didn't. But who's to say, people get into real, tough spots, don't they? And
you're putting your hands and your faith into the, in quotes, experts, aren't you?
Yeah, and I don't even know what thought prompted me to go to the GP, because there was not really, it's not like, it's slightly different now because we have a lot more information, a lot more outreach, a lot more kind of avenues to go down to kind of get information. But this is a particular time I was talking about when I was 23. And I don't even know what prompted me to go to the GP. I don't think I even knew that GPs would talk to you about that kind of thing. But I thought, where do you go when you're in trouble? I guess the doctor.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh my God, that's terrible that people are out there with no one. I really hate that idea. And that's really dangerous and not very helpful. And then I thought, I really want to help other people who feel that way, because that's just not a way to be, right? Anyway, I hardly know where to go with that thought, but I basically started off by becoming a mental health social worker, which is going out seeing people who are really, really in trouble in difficult circumstances, which chimed with my belief that our political landscape, our environment really affects us and our capacity to cope with stuff. And again, I wasn't in a position to pay for private therapy or get any help from anybody. And that was really difficult. So becoming a social worker fitted with my kind of social justice values hat.
Yeah.
And anyway, essentially I didn't want people to feel alone. And then when I was on my social work course, I came across Rogers, and he talked about the non-medical way forward. Trust in the person, be a human being. Everyone's individual and unique. Meet them heart to heart. You have to be wearing a professional hat all the time and be the powerful one. Why can't we be powerful together? I felt like I had a lot of information from my experiences. Every client who comes to me has a whole history. Why should I be telling them what to do? Why can't we build a relationship where we go forward together?
Almost like comparing notes kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and Rogers spoke to my heart, and I thought I could probably do this, and so that's when I trained to be a therapist.
Wow. So if a psychotherapist needs therapy, where do they go?
Well, to another therapist, of course.
Right. So how do you choose another therapist? Because you're an expert in your field. But how do you choose one that you think you're going to get something out of? Because obviously, I'm not saying you're all fighting against each other for clients and stuff, but some people have different ways of doing things, I'm assuming. So how do you, if you need somebody to talk to, how do you work out who that person's going to be?
There is one really quick answer to that. I follow my instincts.
Right.
I don't care. I've had enough life experience to know if I get on with someone or not, or if someone is dangerous or not, which is another really important thing to kind of think about for some people. I'm not particularly bothered, as you can tell from my discussion with you so far. Qualifications are wonderful. That's great, but they're not particularly important to me. They're
No.
not really going to tell me who you are. And I'd go to someone qualified because that seems a sensible option, doesn't it? They'll have had the training, they'll have had the knowledge. But I also want to know them, on a deeper level. Are you really going to connect with me and get me? And if I talk to them and I get that from them, from my gut, I think this is someone I can really trust and talk to and tell about my most horrible, unreasonable, shameful, crappy, shitty stuff. Then I'm probably going to do okay. Whatever I do with them is probably going to go all right. And of course, there's other reasons, but people can go to therapy for whatever reason they want. I have no judgment about that. If you go to therapy and you want strategies to cope with a tough time in your life, that's fine. You don't have to spend years in therapy exploring it. If you want to spend years exploring your past, talking about your past, go for it. Do it. Why not? If it helps you, that's terrific. You're the guide. You know what you need. And that should really be valued and trusted by whichever professional sits in front of you and treats you with respect and is interested and curious and cares.
Right.
And that's what I want. I want to be cared about, don't you? Don't
Absolutely. We? Absolutely. So one final question. When it comes to things like somebody at home is thinking about getting therapy, at what point, I mean, would you wait until you're feeling depressed to go and get therapy, or would you use it as maybe, sort of think, I'm feeling okay now, but I'm going to go and get therapy to try and stave off feeling depressed, or do you just let that happen anyway? When's the best time to get therapy?
Wow, great question. I think, again, totally individual decision. I think it can be really hard to reach out for help when you're really at a low, because it's so difficult to pick up the phone and tell someone that. Sometimes we can't even speak when we feel that low, can't articulate anything. We have no clue what we're doing, can't think straight. Our cognitive function is really messed up. Our motivation might be at a low. So sometimes that's a really hard time, but sometimes it's the perfect time, because you just go, I just want to talk to someone and I know that I need to do it. People may well be tuned into that sense in them. But I think, when is the right time for therapy? Have a think about your own readiness for it. If you think, do I feel okay talking to someone at this moment in my life, then that's a good moment to do it, because we don't always feel like we want to do that. And there's lots of ways of accessing therapy now. It's not like it used to be, like you sit in a room and you have to kind of be there for the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more kind of flexible and open, I think. So you can do walking therapy, you can do online therapy, so you might feel more comfortable if you're at home and you think, I feel just about able to kind of open the laptop and talk to someone. That feels like within my capacity. Sometimes you might kind of reach out to someone and you just have a first sense, and then you might stop and then not come back to it for a little while. Or you have therapy for a while, you have a great relationship going, and lots of therapists will, if you finish and you're in a good place, if something happens and you want to come back or you hit another rough spot, they will see you for a few sessions where you can come back in. So it's not like the door is closed, that's it, I'm supposed to be well now forever for the rest of my life. That's really not very kind of logical, is it?
So no, it's not the kind of thing we think, oh, I'm done now, I've finished, everything's perfect, because it never, as we've already said, nothing's perfect.
Yeah, and for me, I guess now I think, if I'm really avoiding something, because there's things that I've struggled to talk about, and it's going to take me a while to get to a point when I feel like I can, and I think I can kind of face telling somebody that now. Then I'll pick up the phone, and if I've worked with a therapist and I want to see them again, that's great. If I want to try something else, that's fine, because there's lots of different things to go for if you've had something hasn't worked. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much for spending this time. I'll expect the bill on an email.
It'll be coming. Don't worry. That's one of the things I never forget to do.
I bet you don't. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you, though, Charlotte, what's the best way of them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way is just to email me, charlottewhitetherapy@gmail.com. Charlotte White Therapy is all one word. And sometimes if people meet with me and I'm not the right person for them, I'll point them in the direction of someone who I think can help, or something that I think will be good. So it's not just about thinking I'm the be all and end all for people. I 100% don't. So yeah, I hope that's helpful.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for spending some time with us. It's been enlightening and emotional, as I'm sure every one of these bleeding episodes are going to be.
What have you got yourself in for?
What have I got? I know. Whenever I start this, they always seem like a good idea at the time. Before we go, I got to try and get used to doing these new emails and stuff. So if you want to email me, it's bigblackbearpod@gmail.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram @bigblackbearpodcast, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, @bigblackbearpod. Charlotte, thank you ever so much once again. And hopefully maybe come back on again and we can chat again, and you can charge me a second time.
Fantastic. I can't wait. I'll have the invoice ready.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone, and bye, friends.